Hmm. And what exactly did he say? He said, "Woe is me, for I'm undone." Okay, perfect. So we see that he's in the presence, he's in the glory of God, right? He sees all of these amazing things. We could always go and pick out all these little things, but big picture, he's in God's throne room, and he notices what about himself? There's a contrast between him and God. He's not worthy. He see that he's a man of unclean lips, and he lives among a people of unclean lips as well. And then what happened? So after he sees that, an angel comes and does what? Touches. Well, the angel goes and does what? He grabs a coal out of the altar. He touches his lips, and then what did it say about that? I don't. So let's go back to the text and let's kind of read it. Hmm. Okay, and then after that, what happens? Hmm. And then he said, "Here am I, send me." I thought that that was a very interesting. And we're gonna. I I like to skip around because I see connections. Um, I see a very interesting contrast. So Isaiah is in the presence, or he's in this vision, and he's in the presence of God, and he notices himself being unclean. He was cleansed, and then he said, "Here am I, send me." Right? Um, an interesting contrast. Now later on in the lesson, I think this would have been on Thursday, we talked about Lucifer, right? Um, do we remember? I think it's in the Ezekiel. So Ezekiel 28. Let's go to Ezekiel 28. And if I could have someone read, it's probably going to be closer to the end, but we could read the whole thing, 11 through 17. Yeah, I think we could. Yeah, that's verse 11, right? Or oh, I mean, we could stop there. We could stop there. So I think, so I was looking. I've been so this week I was looking at the imagery. So Isaiah, um, he was presented before God. He noticed that he was unclean. He was a people. He lived among a people of unclean lips and all of that. He allowed God or the seraphim to touch his lips. He got cleaned. Then he said, "I will go and I will go and I will bring your message." Now the message is interesting, but I will bring your message to the people. Right? We have this contrast with this other character. Um, so he tell me about Lucifer. Where was Lucifer and what was he doing before iniquity was found in him? He was the cherub that. Now, I would have to do a little bit more digging and some more research. Um, and there's some suggestion from some of Ellen White's writings saying, who Lucifer was, right? Um, and he was there, and he was in the presence of God, and iniquity was found in his heart, and then what happened to him? And then he was, essentially he was burnt up from within, right? So he was destroyed. Iniquity was found in him, and he was destroyed. I think one of the warnings that I got from the lesson this week was what we do with with what we do with what God is trying to do with us, um, kind of is very important. So we had one guy that he was in the presence of God. He was purified. His iniquity was purged, and then he was able to go and speak for God. He was actually doing the job of what we were actually told what Lucifer was supposed to be doing, announcing God's presence and all that, right? So, um, that's a stretch, but in any case, and then we had another that iniquity was found in him, and it burnt him up. And I wonder why. Any thoughts? Hmm. 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 That's the other one, Isaiah 14. Hmm. So there's a text, and I like where you're going with that. There's a text that says, "From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." I think it's interesting that the coal was put on the lips. Um, maybe as as a symbol of what God needed to atone for us, or how God needed to, what the blood and the atonement and everything needed to do for us. It needs to cleanse us from within. The Holy Spirit connecting with us and all of that. We all know that process. But um like I said, I see that contrast. And if we're looking at the one of the foundations of prophecy, or in terms of this lesson, um what I see is what God is trying to do with us throughout this life, as in, we need to allow God to cleanse us. We need to do like what Isaiah did, which is allow that coal, whatever that coal is in your life, that coal to be touching your lips, to be cleansing you, um, so that you can speak, and you could speak the truth about God. You could speak the truth about what's been going on in your life, how God has been leading you, and all of that. Did you have something to say? Hmm. What is it? Holy? Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. 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 Yep. Yep. I Anyone else? I should rise higher than the rest. And I like that, and I don't want to lose sight of that contrast. So again, to reiterate, what were we seeing the contrast between Lucifer, he was in the presence, versus Isaiah when he came into the presence, and what were the contrasts that we're seeing? Hmm. Hmm. Is that the mhm. Is that the end that God wants for us? Hmm. And then what do we do after we're purified? Hmm. Yep. Hmm. And I believe that's a part of the symbolism of the coal. Did you have something, sir? Or no. Okay. Mhm. You were gonna say I. Mm. So with maturity and more direction, you're able to make better choices. Hmm. There you go. There you go. There you go. Hmm. Go ahead. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yep. 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 The fire could either burn you up or could purify you. And so. Need to give you that vision. Hmm. 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 I really like that as well. He Isaiah may have been like you were saying, may have been a bit haughty until he actually saw what's good and what's pure and what's glory and whatever he saw in that scene about God. When we see the contrast between us and God, it has a way. If we are, if we actually like the light, it humbles us. It reminds me of the text. Where is it? It's at John. What was it? John 3, verse, I think like 9 or something. The text that says judgment is this. The light was light. Go ahead. They did not like the light because their deeds were evil. And that's an interesting text, and that's an interesting way to tie this in. Um, you mentioned the well, we've been kind of mentioning the tabernacle, and the lesson actually does talk about the tabernacle. It talks about two different types of, or two different kind of representation of tabernacle. So Monday it talked about the cherubims at the the entrance to uh no, to Eden, at the entrance to Eden. The sword with the two, well, they said two, the cherubims, I would say cherubims. So the cherubims that at the entrance to Eden. And then the really interesting one, I never, maybe I just have not been paying attention to this one, but the the similarity between the representations of the the beasts around the throne, um, what Ezekiel saw, and that representation with the camp of Israel, and I thought that was really, really cool and interesting. So let's where was that? And we'll go back to the cherubim um in Monday. But yeah, let's jump to Wednesday and let's look at that, because I think that was really it's actually in Tuesday and Wednesday. So let's go to Ezekiel. Is it Ezekiel 1? Yep. Ezekiel 1. No, yeah, Ezekiel 1, verse 4 through 14. Let me have somebody read that. Then I'll have someone else read um uh um, Revelations 4, verse 1 and 11, 1 through 11. So which one are you doing? 4 through 14. Okay, we could start. So, first of all, um, when I read this, the honest reality is it sounds crazy. It almost sounds like gibberish, right? I think this guy was seeing something so extraordinary that he was trying to figure out how to describe it. But it was awesome, right? But then, interestingly, let's go. Who has revelations? Yeah, I just have a sense of humor, so I could imagine because I try to imagine this and I can't. And so he's seeing a dimension that he doesn't understand, and he's trying to describe it. So I just thought that was funny. All right, go ahead with Revelations. 4 verse 1 through 11. So I'm gonna throw a few more thoughts that came to me in there. So you guys remember? So obviously God has given these prophets these visions with symbols that the people would remember, would understand, or mean something to them, right? You guys remember what happened at Mount Sinai when God appeared? How is it described? It's described terrible, but what were the specific things? Fire, lightning, rocks breaking, flash, the same things that we're seeing in both imagery, right? um and then within these two imagery, we see the similarities, right? We see four beasts, and the four beasts had the same four faces. So one guy described the four faces. Each of them had different face, but the representation of those four faces were the same. It was an ox, an eagle, a man, and a lion. Right? Now let's go to Wednesday's lesson, which I think is really interesting. We could go through and we could read the whole thing, but if you guys want to, we could read. So I could have somebody do Numbers 2 verse 3. So one person does Numbers 2 verse 10, another Numbers 2 verse 18, and then Numbers 2 verse 25. So who has Numbers 2 verse 3? Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Hmm. I like that. I like that. That's going to come in. So you had Numbers 2 verse 3. Okay, Judah. What was do we remember what the representation of Judah? The line of Judah. Okay. Then somebody has Numbers 2 verse 10. All right. The line was the easy one. What's Reuben? A man's head. All right. Who has Numbers 2 verse 18? Okay. So Ephraim, what is the standard or what is the symbol for Ephraim? Ox. Okay. And then to verse 25. Anyone have 25? Okay. And then the last one that's left is an eagle. What's in the middle? So they were the closest to what structure? The tabernacle. And what was shining out of the tabernacle that they could see? The Shekinah glory. Same symbol. So I wonder why God used those symbols. So first he said, okay, I'm going to use the symbol that your parents have been telling you about forever. This great, I have never I've never celebrated a Passover. But I could imagine connected to that or connected to some of their feasts, they're going to have the stories of when they left Egypt, right? And when they got to the mountain, and their parents are going to be telling them when or parents of parents or whatever are going to be telling them when our people met God, when we saw God, we had the lightning and the thunder and all those things, right? They're going to be telling them about when we were moving in the camp of Israel, the tabernacle had the Shekinah glory, God's presence, and it was in the middle of the camp. And what was surrounding them was these four symbols. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that when he described the seraphims, those were the symbols. Um, I think God was trying to give us a message. And I do agree with Sean Boonstra when he suggests what that message is, that it's the same thing that God wants to do, the same tabernacle, the you know the type, type, antitype, whatever, the same tabernacle in heaven is what he was trying to represent here on earth. What he's doing in heaven is what he is trying to represent and doing here on earth, which is to be in the middle and to do what happened with Isaiah when he got to the throne room and he was in God's presence. The I like those answers. I like this one the best. What happened? The coal was put on his mouth. He was purified. And then what did he do? He went to share the message. And, you know, if we read the rest of Isaiah's story, it was all about telling Israel, hey, you guys got to clean your act up. You got to clean your act up. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. But the bulk of his message was, we got to clean our acts up, guys. We're serving this awesome God and we got to clean our acts up. Um, and you know we all believe in that message that the reason the purpose that God, not the reason, because there's other reasons, but the purpose that God used Israel for, a royal priesthood, to do what? To share to share God's message with everyone. um the purpose the original purpose of Lucifer was to share God's character. Unfortunately, we got down in history to where those who were given this awesome duty did such a poor job that God had to come down himself to reshare that message. He gave that message to his apostles, who then turned into the Christian church. Have we purified ourselves? Have we allowed God's presence and those coals from the altar to purify us so that we can actually do our commission. We we have this great commission, and I remember in Pathfinders we had an elocution contest, and so um I chose the three angels message, and the whole church was all happy because one of the little Pathfinders chose the three angels message, and the reason why is because we as Adventists see ourselves as one of our defining things that we have the three angels message to share, right? This is an awesome message. Fear God, give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him that made heaven and earth and sea and all that therein is. Babylon is fallen. All the bad stuff on the earth cannot conquer us. If we stay with God, he is going to work an awesome work in us, and he is going to make us new, recreate us, do what he's been trying to do with us from the beginning. Well, not from the beginning, but from sin. um he has the power. He is awesome. Like, he's that Shekinah glory, that the presence that brought these scrappy people through, is through the wilderness. Their stuff didn't fall apart. They had food and water consistently. They had no need, and like, they were good. This is that God. This is the God who, if you see him, you're gonna be undone, because his presence and his glory is so awesome. In addition to that, he's the one that created us all. This is the God, and he can do it. There's no doubt that he can and he will, if we allow him. um so, thoughts. That's what I got from the lesson. We're meant to be a okay. I like that. Hmm, hmm. Hmm. And he had to remember, he had to be purified. He had to. Yep. Hmm, hmm. Hmm, hmm. Hmm. Unfortunately, yep. Yep, yep. Any other thoughts? Yep. Go ahead, Randy. Hmm. Hmm. Mm. A God. And what was that first lie that he told our parents? You could be a lion too. Come, come be a lion with me. We're all lions, but we don't understand the real lion. Mm. Mhm. Yep. 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 No more power. Yep. I agree. I agree. Hmm. Hmm. I mean, that's scenery. Yeah. Hmm. Yep. It's interesting. It's interesting, and that go ahead. Interest again. g- Yeah, yeah. Eh, like a lion. Yeah. Well. What's interesting, and I don't think these imageries were selected out of mistake, because that's an interesting. A roaring lion. Everyone knows about the roaring lion, but what does a prowling lion do? He doesn't roar. Yeah, he's seeking. He's very quiet until he's ready to pounce. He's doing things in secret. Yeah, yeah. You just destroyed the the thing, but yeah, yeah, but yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to get back to the last piece that we did not touch on the in the lesson, and I appreciate you guys. Like I said, I was having a hard time putting everything together, but you guys have helped kind of put this lesson together, and I think it's been a really awesome. Exactly, it's been a really awesome lesson. So back to Tuesday, I think God has always um I like the idea that came out with this one. So was it Tuesday? Yes, the garden. Yes, yes, Monday. Okay, Monday. Yeah, where God does not. So you know s- when we, and maybe this is just something from me, or maybe I'm the only one, but I don't know. It's at times it's easier to have, like a relationship with an actual person, a physical person. Like I have a relationship with my wife, I have a relationship with my kids, I have a relationship with all of you guys in some way or another, right? Because you guys are here, I'm able to talk with you guys, I'm able to touch you guys, I'm able to handle you guys and see you guys and all of that, right? And sometimes I feel like on our journey, or journey to Christ, hopefully it is to Christ and not away from Christ. Um, sometimes when we're in those lows, it kind of gets a little hard because you know God may not be physically there, and so some of the things that we have to interact and communicate with God is a little different. But and I feel like He knows that, and so a part of what He's done in the past, and I'm sure if we look at our testimonies, we'll see these evidences as well. David said the heavens declare the glory of God and all of that. Um, but in Tuesday's lesson, it talked about one of those things where they fell, right? Adam and Eve, they were in the garden, they were doing awesome. God would come and visit them. It said the cool of the day, so however often that was, God would be there there with them and interacting, and they had this awesome home. All they had to do is take care of the animals. That's all. But they took care of the animals. They ate what they needed to, except they had that one thing that they should not have done: eat from the tree of good and evil. Um, and they did it. There was a consequence to be let out of the garden. Um, but God didn't just take the garden away. He left a memory of them. And one of the imageries that Sean Bootstra, and I think, if I'm remembering, I think it was from what Ellen White said, right? Um, that that God left the garden there to kind of help them remember beauty, help them remember what they should be striving towards. Um, I think it's the same reason why he did this awesome Shekinah glory. Um, and like I said, if we search through our lives, we can see those little pieces of evidence in our lives as well. That God does not leave us to question, to wander. He gives us enough that our faith could be strong, could be made renewed if we seek. So seek me and you'll find. So um, that's what I got from Tuesday's lesson. Anyone else has anything they wanted to add? Hmm. 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 East. Hmm. Hmm. Yep. 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 Yeah. Yeah. It's west, not east. Hmm. Yeah, I always thought that it was interesting that they kept going east whenever so all through Genesis, they kept traveling east, but they worshiped when they were worshiping, and whenever God gave them something to worship, or not something to worship, but whenever God gave them their instructions to worship, good catch, right? Whenever God gave them their instructions to worship, it was west. It was away from that east. So that's interesting. I like that. All right. Any other thoughts? Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Yep. Yep. Life. That's a good question. I I can't think of anywhere or anyone that has given an answer to that yet, but that's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. Hmm. Hmm. I've never seen the righteous forsaken or. Mhm. Yep. Hmm. Hmm. It wasn't destroying their soul. It was, hey, you guys did something. You guys need to turn back, but I'm still here to take care of you. Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Yep. 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 All right, we have. Mhm. 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 Hmm. It's interesting that Portland. Yeah. I like that.